Hey guys, we are here at the Blackmore Ranch, and we've got a very cool bike, 1984 Kawasaki 125, that was ridden to that national championship that summer by this man, Mr. Jeff Ward. Thanks for stepping in with us.
Glad to be here.
So, this is owned by Hugh Parker. He bought a bunch of really cool race bikes, and we're kind of going through them and stoked that you guys could swing by and tell us a little about what you remember from that season, this bike. So start with the bike. What about this made it different from other bikes you'd ridden? You obviously jumped with it because you won 8 out of 10 rounds that summer.
Yeah, this bike, man, what made this bike it was way better than the bikes I had before this bike. So starting with the Kawasaki, the bikes were probably behind the Hondas. It was like catch up with water cooled disc brakes were always seemed to be behind. Bikes were always heavy. Even though I did well on them, it was always a struggle racing against like Barnett that had a bike that weighed 176 when the limit was 175 and ours weighed 210. That was the weight difference.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. So we had an extremely heavy bike, didn't handle, but it had a great motor. So I'd whole shot and then just hang up for your life. So in '83, they revamped the whole thing. The bike became really good. I got second behind Johnny, only 9 points. I only won, I think, one national that year, maybe 2, but Barnett was in there with Lachine. So it was always a big toss-up. You could go 1-4 and get third. So it was a really tight battle that year. And then we fine-tuned the bike. There's a lot of testing in Japan to get this bike to where I liked it better than the year before. I think it may have came out with the Kips power valve, maybe halfway through the year before that. So we really got the bike dialed in. And of course, back then we used to race the Golden State Series before Supercross even started. So I would be riding this, not even the 250. I'd be just riding this for the outdoors. And I won that year on the bike, which was my first year winning really a #1 play. It was pretty big for Kawasaki to get, even though it was a Golden State, but out here it was basically a national.
Yeah, those were big deals.
Everybody showed up. It was the same guys you were racing. So, then it started off the first race down in Gainesville. I won one that day, and just through the year, Johnny and I were just 1 and 2 the whole season.
So you guys were kind of outclassing the rest of you.
Yeah, we never got worse than second.
Yeah,
we got 1-2 every moto, the MRI. So.
And were you two buddies?
No, not that time.
Not at that time.
We were big rivals because he was Indian Dunes. I was Saddleback. He won everything up there. I won down here. We didn't clash until the Golden State.
Okay.
He came down all his white gear and gaiters, and we just battled. And then it went from there to the nationals, and we didn't speak. And like I said, I won the first race at Gainesville. The second race at Saddleback, first moto, I was behind him. He had a pretty good lead, and then I might have fell. I caught up, and then there was this section that dropped down in this turn, and you had to go up this hill to clear this little tabletop. And I came down. He went outside, and I came inside, hit a brake bump, and just rode my front wheel. And I actually missed him, and he turned and hit my back wheel. Oh. And he went down, and I saved it. And then he came looking for me in the pits after the moto to try to kick my butt. I wasn't there yet. I was at the podium, and my mechanic, Mike McAndrews, said, "Oh, man, Johnny came through. He's pissed." I said, "What for?" He goes, "Oh, you took him out." I go, "Well, I didn't really, because I didn't hit. He hit me. So I would have hit him. I would have taken him out, but I was riding my front wheel through the corner." And then he was so pissed the second moto, and he beat me the second moto, so he got the overall. And that was one of the two. He beat me the whole season. So
you guys had a real Tupac and Biggie thing going on there. The Saddleback Indian Dunes was kind of a rivalry in itself. Was this thing competitive with those Hondas at the time? Because those were kind of the
Hondas were awesome bikes, right? Well, Kawasaki did a great job with the bike. Even at that stage in '84, I was the only Kawasaki on the line.
Oh, really?
The production bike was junk. Nobody rode a production. For years, I was the only Kawasaki on the 125 line.
And something that's different about today, sorry to cut you off, but I've heard that this is true, confirm it's correct. You guys would do all your testing in Japan.
Right.
Your preseason stuff, and then they would just ship it over and go, "There's your bike."
Right.
It wasn't like you were doing a lot of development here. Fine-tuning.
No, once it came here, it was pretty much, I mean, if you had to change something, it had to get, telegraphed or whatever to get
Pigeon.
Yeah, Pigeon took it there. We didn't have quick communication. So to get something changed, it might come 4 races later. Like if we had a break in a triple clamp, we're in big trouble. We'd probably have somebody fix it here, which we did break a lot of triple clamps and dog bone, whatever they called the dog bone in the back, the unitrack, would break a lot when we first got it. So it was just trying to fix it. But I'd be over there for 5 weeks in November, October, November, testing this bike with a bunch of dough. And we even had the Roger DeCoster floater front end on this thing one time. Yeah, back when that was the thing. We tried that. That was horrible. But yeah, they would just throw stuff that to this day, you would like, why couldn't we have just gone to what you knew that worked? But they had to go through
Scratching up.
They knew it sucked, but they wanted to get you, like, when you got to it, you actually like, instead of giving them your best and then go, that's not good enough, and then you'd be like, well, we have nowhere else to go. So by the time you got there, you liked what you had because everything else sucks so bad.
Well, what about, because you were riding 250 Supercross and 125 outdoors, so did you test both bikes while you were out?
Yeah, too, but we didn't have a Supercross track. We were just basically testing outdoor stuff, and then with Supercross, we just put stiffer suspension on it, basically a different spring. So, and then you'd be testing pipes with Mitch and, and doing all that. And then I'd end up going back to the factory pipe, and Mitch would be all pissed off because we tested all. It was just such a weird, it was so hard because, with chicken, we'd have this one pipe and that's all we'd have, and I liked it. And then when you go, like, we leave our Supercross track and then go to like Seattle, where it was like riding in glue, and it had like no bottom. You had to get rid of it and go back to the factory stock pipe because Mitch had it set up for top end horsepower, and getting through and then you'd go to a track that had so much grip it had no bottom, so I'd get rid of that, and then Chicken would take it because he wanted it, because I'm the only one that got it because there was only one. So it was kind of like this shit show there for a little while of how to get this thing working. So the communication was tough, but once the bike came over, unless Mitch had something,
That was kind of it.
that was it. Yeah.
So 8 rounds, that's a good, you kind of put it to Johnny so right? I didn't realize you won so many races.
Yeah.
How much did that mean to Cowie to win this title?
It was pretty big because the last time I think they won some was probably with Weiner. Maybe, I don't know if he won a Supercross or 500. There wasn't many championships, but and as motocross got bigger in the States and Supercross, everything became a bigger deal. And so, yeah, it was super, super big to them. I was like a hero in Japan. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And but I had a good season with Johnny. Like we said, even though I won 8 rounds, the points difference was nothing because he'd win the first moto and I'd win the second moto, so we'd tie in points. So I only won 2 races, 1-1. So the only difference were 2 motos at 6 points.
And that he'd Johnny up, that you'd beat him in the second.
I wore down or whatever it was, or I rode better, or however it worked out. The one race he beat me, he got 1-1, I believe, was in Atlanta. I was leading the second moto. It was so hot, and I had my open face, and went through a berm behind somebody like 3 laps to go and had my mouth open, and all the dust went straight in the mouth and coated the back of my throat, and I was already overheating, and I started coughing, and I couldn't stop coughing, and I was ready to pass out. So I was just riding the track. Johnny came by. I didn't know. So I was just riding and I saw the checkered flag, and then I went off and I went straight right into a fence and then fell over. They couldn't get my helmet off because my head was swelling so bad from overheating and exhaustion. I almost had heat stroke. And I don't even remember that part of the day or where I went even after that. So it was just like, and then that was his last race he beat me on, but everything else was still 1-2, 1-2. So it was a tight.
What a fun series. Well, we appreciate you just taking the time to share a little bit about this bike. I've told you for a long time, you were the guy I was looking up to as a kid. I was a Team Green kid. I was short.
Yeah.
I'm like, Ward is my guy.
Cool.
So,
yeah, no, it was a good year.
Yeah.
Well, another little story. We watched you the last race, another one, the Johnny. All I had to do, I really didn't have to beat Johnny when we went up there. So I was leading the first moto, had a decent lead. He started catching me, and I didn't want to get taken out. The only way he could beat me is if he took me out and something broke, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't want to get taken out. So I came by the mechanics there. It used to be the start was up top, and I made a right-hander, and then do that left-right section. So that's where the mechanics area was. So I came in there, and Johnny's behind me. So I moved over and waved him by, and the berm was in the bottom. So I went high. Johnny went straight.
Straight out.
I had my hand out, waving like this, and he just cleaned me out, right to the ground.
No way.
Went down, jumped up, started going wide open, came around. The mechanics were fighting. There was scrapping going on. And I ended up, I believe I caught him and passed him and won the moto.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So he did his job. He put me into position to where I went just crazy. Now I have to catch him. I could have cartwheeled trying to catch him, but I was just, I'm going to get him. So the championship mindset went out the window and said, like, see you, Johnny, I'm just going to cruise per second.
So were you mad about that, or do you go, hey, look, title's on the line, he's got to do it?
It was a time I was mad, but I'm like, that was kind of stupid of me to do. I should have just stayed ahead of him and then, let him go by, or he would have gone by. Probably wouldn't have done anything because that's not Johnny's forte to do that. But waving by in front of the mechanics, like, really pissed him off. So he cleaned me out, but it was, and then I won the second moto, I believe, and got the overall again. So
Well, you got the #1 plate.
Yeah, that's what counted. So,
Well, thanks for swinging by, dude. Always a pleasure hanging out.
appreciate it. Good time.